Welcome to the Wake.Show. As everybody knows, the show needs an intro. This is that intro. Good morning. I am Fisher. How are you? This is going to be a very short show today. And for the sole purposes that I do not have the mental fortitude to make it through a show. The only reason that I even pressed start and came on is really I don't know, to be honest with you. I don't know. Hey Brett, how you doing, buddy? I almost called you. Well, I almost called a lot of people to come in and help me out with the show today, because I feel like if that probably was the right thing to do, would have been the right thing to do. But I've been crushed with this dread and depression and anxiety for the past day and a half. I shouldn't have even done a show yesterday. But I should have done one of two things yesterday and today. Either not hit start and go, or called Brett or Pat Largo, Corey Dillon, Kurt Schreiner, and come in here and do what a lot of people do every day, and that is fake it. Just push through. You got to. That's part of it, Brett. There's a part of me that thinks, so when I get like this, especially yesterday, going into, and it doesn't let up. We'll see, like Brett yesterday. Here's like, go back and listen. No, don't go back. I don't give a shit. Don't go back. But if you were to go back and watch yesterday's show, and there's no reason to, you'll hear me at somewhere halfway through the show drop the F-bomb. And you'll see me drop the F-bomb. I drop the F-bomb and go, ooh. And you're thinking, well, that's not that big of a deal, man. It's the internet. I know you guys are having your, you have your policy or your rules. Hold on, let me get my jug of water. But you're not going to get fined. This isn't radio. But that's not the point. The point is this: in my head, the rules are radio rules plus shit, and so that is and I'm a pro. So that is a sign to me when I let something slip like I did yesterday, let the F-bomb out, that my head is not where it needs to be. Now, this is not what do they call that? Machinery. Hey, Nikki. Hi, Cords. Hi, Ian. How are you? I feel like I should apologize to Cords now that I see his name up here, but I don't want to. I don't want to slip down that slope. So yesterday, Cords is trying to. Oh, and by the way, for those of you who don't know Cords, Cords is the owner of Bake More Pies, full service online marketing and digital production facility. And Nikki says I said the F-bomb like 20 times yesterday. Yeah, that's fine. I'm good, Cords. I'm good. I mean, I'm not good, but I'm not that bad. Okay, hang in there, bud. I thank you. I appreciate that. So yesterday after the show, Cords, I'm downstairs and I just want to go home. I don't want to see anybody. I don't want to look anybody in the eyes. I don't want to say hi. I just want to leave. And Cord stops me and we start chatting about the show and about other things, other business matters. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself how amazing this is. Look at all these opportunities. They're just one after another, just firing right at me. Boom, boom, boom. Life is great. But inside, there's a tightening, which wasn't because of those conversations. It started earlier in the day. This tightening and seizing, it feels like of your. I can feel. I mean, it's when this happens, I can feel it. And by the way, I'm not even putting up sponsored by today, because I don't even know if this is going to last 15 minutes. And I don't think we're going to cover any stories today, unless you bring stuff up. You know me. I'll be looking at the comment section, and if you bring something up, I'll address it. But for the most part, this is being in the moment, but not a good moment. One of those moments that you're wallowing in, or I'm wallowing in, and I know this is the kind of stuff that normally and traditionally you would keep to yourself and keep behind closed doors, especially as a man. If you're a woman, you get a little bit of leeway to not have a good day or to be emotional or whatever. You get a little bit of a leeway, but then what price do you have to pay? What price do you have to pay for that, ladies? Well, then you have to sit there and another time when you thought you were able to be vulnerable in a moment. And another time you have to sit and hear that's how all women are all the time, and that's why you can't be leaders of anything or rule anything. Cords, you didn't have to come up here, man.
Well, I want to take some good news.
All right. Brett, I think if you were on terrestrial radio, you would have caught yourself before saying it. Brett, that is right. Well, that's my point. And you're saying that I got a little too comfortable here, but I don't think so, because I did the same thing on terrestrial radio towards the end, when there was way too much shit in my head, and I can't remember what I said. I don't think I dropped the F-bomb. I think it was shit. I think I said bullshit or something like that. And you're thinking, well, that's not that big of a deal. It is, because worst case scenario is next thing you're sued, and I believe, or you're fined by the FCC. And if it were to get to that point, I think that was like over $300,000 or something along those lines. But I was in a place. Those were back at a time when I was having these panic attacks going into work in the morning, and they feel like heart attacks. They feel like heart attacks in your chest, and in your head, it feels like somebody's firing off like they removed your part of your brain, stuck a gun in there, and it's going boom, 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 boom. And that's what it feels like, at least for me. I believe you're training yourself on this platform. You made a mistake, which we all do. I play wrong notes all the time, but make a point to learn from it. So ask yourself, did you learn something about yourself yesterday? I did learn something about myself, Brett, and it has nothing to do with me being bummed that I dropped the F-bomb. To me, that was just evidence of something else. But I don't want Cords has made his way up the staircase and into the cave here. So, Cords, how are you, sir?
Good, man.
All right. Panic attacks suck. I feel you. Thank you, Nikki. How are you? By the way, great line the other day. Cords and I and Haley are all talking out front, and we're talking about therapy dogs. And I was talking, how my wife, I was telling about how my wife and I are contemplating getting our dog certified, so one can always be with me. We could take him anywhere. Well, that for her, it's like so we can take him anywhere. For me, I'm trying to figure out my anxiety issues. So anyway, Haley starts talking about Pepper's my therapy dog or whatever it is, and Cords just goes, I don't need a therapy dog. And I go, you are the therapy dog. For people who are grounded and seem to have it together, you are the therapy dog.
Well, that's not always true, to be honest with you.
I know.
I don't always have it together.
I
don't know. I think part of it comes from when I was playing sports back when I was much younger. The position I played was place kicker.
Which
seems
to me is the hardest position on the field, except maybe for the punt returner.
Well, yeah, I mean it's funny because I used to beat myself. I had the mentality. It's like I'd much rather be like a free safety or something, but I didn't have the physical tools to do any of that stuff. And so, from a mental standpoint, it's a really tough position to play because I don't get another play. I don't get another down. I literally have... You have an Eminem moment every time. I have 1.5 seconds from the moment... If you're doing a good job, it's 1.3 seconds from the moment the long snapper snaps the ball to the moment that you kick the ball to go through those uprights. And it could mean that you won the game or lost the game. You've got literally hundreds of people on your team. So like 100 people on your team and thousands of people in the stands that are all counting on you. And literally it used to make me shake. Like I would be like shaking with anxiety before going out there. And it wasn't until I got into college and about 3/4 of the way through the first season where I really started to understand that, like, you know, was able to kind of separate some of that and gain some of that composure. And I didn't really experience it in my life again until I was in a position of like a lot of responsibility in an agency. And what would happen was, because you're interacting with 10 to 20 clients at any one time, or you're a point of contact for that many clients, you could have a really terrible day with one of your clients, and then 10 minutes later you could get a client call you and for like 35 minutes thank you for taking the time to make their business better. And it's like you just learn this, like, there's ups and there's downs, and as long as you can kind of make it through some of the down parts and not get too high for the up parts, you can smooth it out a little bit and life goes on.
You're exactly right. And while you were talking, something popped into my head. Over here to my left, next to my little system here, I've got hidden is this little book right here. It's the Dale Carnegie book, and it's opened up to this page, right? This right here. Basic techniques to analyzing worrying and break the worry habit before it breaks you. And that's where it's been for the past, I don't know, however many weeks it's been like that. And so you go through this process in times like these, or you're supposed to, and then it's supposed to help. But I think there are those times where there's that something about you, you know, that the stuff that's happening up here, the way things are firing off, aren't firing off necessarily the way they're supposed to, or maybe it's just me. So
it's not just you.
Basic the techniques to analyzing worrying. So get all the facts. All right, might as well learn something in this moment, right? Get all the facts. So what has sent me into this? Well, here's the thing. I felt this moment coming on for the past week or so. And so you're constantly trying to control for what's going on in my life that could be triggering triggering this, triggering that. And what I think that I'm learning along the way is that it's not an easy cause and effect. Like, if I go chords, you know, well, let me tell you about the last few days. I lost this person in my life, and this happened, and this happened. You'd go, oh, man, I see what you're going through. All right, well, you know, hang in there, and we'll see, you know, we'll get you back in a couple of days. But unfortunately for some of us, what seems to happen is those things will switch, and all of a sudden your body, like I said, I can feel it in my body and my chest twisting. I can feel it down my left side. Then that's where you start going, hey, I mean, you're having a heart attack here. No, it's not. And then you just can't pull yourself out of it. So you try these little tricks here. Weigh all the facts, then come to a decision. Once a decision is reached, act. Write out the answers to the following problems. So this is a good one too. This is really one to put into practice. What is the problem? So you focus in on the problem, right? What is the cause of the problem? What are the possible solutions? And then what are the best solutions? And then you go, what is the worst possible thing that could happen, right? And usually once you go through that exercise, you're like, oh, man, I don't know what I was worried about. I think that's this is an amazing exercise. And it works probably 9 times out of 10 or maybe 95 times out of 100. But then there's those times that your brain is kicked into a gear and it's doing its own thing. And so these little things are much more difficult
That's
to
a fact, too. I mean, you've got somebody like Tony Robbins has built his entire program around basically hacking your human fight or flight responses. Your brain is a very interesting thing where it's designed to help you survive, right? And sometimes that response kicks in earlier for some people than others. And if you can recognize when your brain's playing those little tricks on you, you can break it down. Like if you take a look at what Nick Saban does at Alabama, he tries to train his players. I mean, first of all, he recruits the best players in the country, so that helps. Second of all, what he tries to do is break it down and say, all that matters is that next play. So what? They just ran back, a kickoff on you. So what? You're going to get 60 more plays, get the most out of that next play. And sometimes it's just that, what is that very next step? And it could be very simple. It's like picking up the phone and making a phone call. Just
focus on the next play,
not
what could happen 3 plays from now, what could happen 5 hours from now. Just focus on the next play at hand.
Right.
No, I would imagine focusing techniques would help a lot too. Sarah, you're beating yourself up. All right. See, I don't want this to turn into that, like, hey, man, you're just having this is in the category. The only reason I press play today is because there is a certain part of this show and what we're doing that is in the category of genuine and authentic. Not saying that we're genuine and authentic and then you only get half of us. You get the stuff you want to see, that everybody gets to see. But also I can't stay here too often because you guys, you have your own shit in your life and you have people around you that are going through stuff like this that you don't need to expend any other empathetic energy on me. That's not what this is about. I don't need to turn this on and go, please, I just need somebody to understand me. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong. I want to understand all of this at some point. So if you ever hit on it, you please message me and I'm okay with it. But back to Sarah. She says, you're beating yourself up and you're harder on yourself than anyone else. I'm sure that stuff's true. But I understand. It doesn't matter when your mental health isn't right. It's like getting a cold for those of us who struggle with mental health. It happens. There's nothing you can do. There we go. That's kind of a good way to put it.
Exactly.
So in my
great way.
Somewhere up here, I got a cold on Monday, and so then there's this wash of dread. So what are the symptoms? You're laying there and you don't even know. It's hard to even. You don't even. I got it. All right. You are contemplating why even go on. All right. So that's when I'm at this level. That's when you're just. But don't get me. I also don't want you to read anything to that or like this is a reaching out or you need to reach. That's not that at all. Because I've learned enough tricks over the years too to make sure I trick myself. So that's not an option in my life. So
here's another question. Let me ask you something, Chris. So tell me, what is this diet designed to do that you're on right now?
Well, that's one of the things that I've been trying to. Then you're trying to control for because then all of a sudden I'm on this diet. And I'm in ketosis, and I'm denying my body carbs, and I'm going, well, was that it?
So what is ketosis?
Ketosis is a process by which your body uses energy. So instead of using the glucose like it was using when you've got a lot of carbs, you deny the body that, and so it then switches. It goes from like your unleaded engine to the diesel engine, and all of a sudden starts breaking down fat and turning it into ketones. So
stop telling me about the nutrition part of it. What was wasn't there something more to it where it's like your body is now in survival mode?
Yes. So you're okay.
So now that your body's in survival mode, isn't it logical to say maybe your brain is in survival mode too?
So that's where the extra anxiety is coming from?
Some kind of a crossover? Exactly. I mean, your body thinks it's in survival mode. Isn't it logical to think that maybe your brain thinks that too?
Well, that's where it starts. That's where the signals are going to come from, is in your brain. It's logical to me. As a layman, it seems logical to me anyway.
We got Brad Mary watching right now. He's a friend of mine from high school. And I haven't talked to Brad in a long, long time. But hello, Brad. How are you doing?
How you doing, Brad? I hope all is well. Welcome to the Wake.Show. Exactly. And welcome to the Wake.Intervention. So today I wake up with that feeling I can't make it go away. I switched medicines because this is the thing. I started a keto diet. This is my 4th week. I started a new medicine for my anxiety, and that is experimenting with medical marijuana legally. By the way, Nikki says, Dan, this dude is smart. Yes. That was probably on his tombstone one day. Dan, this dude is smart.
Brad's saying this weird stuff.
That's Nikki. That's coming from Nikki. She says you're a critical thinker. So that's the thing too, is that even though there is the feeling of crushing anxiety, and the term that I think does it best is this overwhelming feeling of dread and despair. Now, that was the term I used a couple of years ago to try to explain to my future wife what I was going through, and that was a big stab in the chest that day. That set me back a couple of paces, because she just mocked me and said, "You're being so emo." Now, do not point any fingers at her, because you're gonna have to point them right back at you eventually if you do. Because all that is that's evidence in the moment that she didn't understand what was going on, and it just registered as, you sound like a 14-year-old boy with black hair and black fingernails. Well, I didn't go through that phase in my teen years, so maybe that's what I'm going through right now. Maybe if I would have painted my nails black for a little while, I'd be okay. But anyway, so then I withdrew at that point because I know it's there, but I don't know how to explain it. And so when you go to explain it and you're very vulnerable, you feel ashamed because you're a man. You're not even supposed to act like this. You're not supposed to be like this. Not only is this for women, this is for crazy women. So, so you're fighting all that kind of stuff as you're trying to figure out what's going on inside of you. And so then when you're that vulnerable to the person that you trust the most, that you're the most vulnerable to, and you don't get the response, then it's like you opened up this wound to go, hey, I need you to look at this wound. And they go, ooh, they took a grenade and stuck it in there and then pushed it back. And so it's been very difficult for me to go get professional help and all that kind of stuff. But to your point, Sarah, thank you. I'm not worried about reaching that place that I have visited before in my head years ago. Now, intellectually, academically, I can understand that once you crack that nut in your head and you're visualizing those escape fantasies, then they're always there somewhere if you're not careful. But at the same time, I think because I went through what I went through and the things I saw during those times, I think that I won't allow that my imagination to even broach that anymore. So when this happens in my body, physiologically, something's happening that I don't seem to be able to control. I just know that it'll pass. And I'm glad you gave me the cold analogy because it's like that. Just like, all right, it's going to be a day or two. You're going to feel like you want to die. And not the kind of die when you have the flu. I mean, the kind of die like you want to end it yourself. But it'll be over, and then you'll be on to the next thing, and it'll be fine.
That's exactly right. We're going to get through this.
So there we go. So cords, stick around. It'll start to feel normal. You talking to me or somebody else?
No.
Or are you talking about the show?
No, Brad says this shit is weird, and I was like, "Well, stick around. It'll start. We'll normalize it for you."
Well, I don't know what your normal is, buddy.
Yeah.
Barry.
Yeah.
Got to sell wood, then the beach.
He's a wood broker.
Okay.
So he sells wood. That's one of the things we do in Georgia. That's why they named that company Georgia Pacific. So anyhow, yeah. So Brad's in the business of selling wood.
Awesome.
Yeah. So when somebody asks him if he's got wood, he may have a whole nother
various prices.
Exactly.
I have varying wood. What kind of wood do you need? And Nikki, my cousin suffers from severe anxiety. Also, he and I support each other in these times. It's nice having someone to talk to that understands. Nikki, it is great to have until that day you call that person and they're in the middle of something and they cannot deal with your shit at all. They can't not deal with like 0.01% of your anxiety because you just happen to call them at a time where they got a million things going on.
So
right.
Brad responds, we have two conversations going on. Brad responds that he sells tomato steaks, and from what I understand about his tomato steaks,
those special, are so good.
Well, no, not like an actual delicious tomato, like they are poles that made out of wood that the tomato plants grow on. But they're made out of this special insect resistant and water resistant Brazilian rainforest wood that lasts longer. It's a better value than your normal tomato wood, tomato pole wood.
So Sarah says, interestingly, carbs and sugar triggers your brain to produce dopamine and makes you happy. So by taking it away, you don't get that quick happy high, if that makes sense. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, but I'll be skinny, and then that'll make me happy, right? But there won't be any more dopamine left in my body to
Well, let's talk about that for a second, because I think it's a good segue into some very normal conversation.
Okay.
So Will Smith, I actually saw a quote from him that happened this week. Will Smith said that he has had all the sex in his life that you could possibly want.
I'm sure.
And it never made him happy. And the only thing that actually makes you happy is serving others. That's the only thing that actually brings him fulfillment, is serving others. That's Will Smith said that. Look it up. It's a recent quote that he had. And, being a male, that's something that obviously crosses my mind all the time.
Well, that's the thing is so many of us are trained. I mean, we're all kind of trained, and then some of us stay in that, as we leave that, high school and college, we some of us stay in that place where your brain is constantly a place of looking for the next ass, where you can't. I have friends of mine, I can't even walk into a restaurant or a bar without all of a sudden them stopping. You see that? I go, dude, if you point out one more set of tits or an ass to me, I'm going to knock you the F out. I don't give a shit. All right. But there's some people that is, and they try to convince me that there's something wrong with me that I'm not constantly trying to get ass all the time. Sorry.
Well, I'm not trying either, but I recognize there's a dopamine drip back there somewhere that
we're trying to
that's
satiate.
going on. So
he goes, anyhow, I got a quote right here.
Quote.
If you're not making someone else's life better, then you're wasting your time. Your life will become better by making others live better.
Yeah,
that is 100% true.
I love that one. That's a good one.
And that is a great piece of advice to when you're, because if you're busy and you're helping somebody, and that, say yesterday and today, I was out, mowing the yard for the Salvation Army or whatever, or helping somebody. At the end of, or like I was over the weekend.
Yeah.
So over the weekend, I'm helping my brother do stuff. I'm helping my cousins do stuff. Well, I feel great.
Exactly.
I feel great. I'm having to use, except for the hives that I broke out into, I'm having to use a lot of energy, expend a lot of energy. And at the end, I expended a lot of energy to help my cousin, perform a task.
Well, and also a lot of times the people with bipolar disorder, when they end up, making that tragic choice that some of them make, a lot of times they'll make it right after a high. So maybe they've just gotten a degree, or they've just accomplished something big, or they've been manic. It's like they've had a manic episode where they're doing really, really good, and then all of a sudden it's like they almost kind of like are out of that energy, and that swing the other way is what gets them to make that tragic choice, which is a terrible, terrible thing.
Brad says, like us on Facebook. I'm gone. Y'all keep up the weird stuff.
Yeah.
Smiley face.
Yeah. There's a very narrow bandwidth of what's not weird in Augusta, Georgia.
Oh, I'm sure. But that, and you're 100% right about this. Like, all right, let's get back to some normal stuff. But there's that battle in my head too. When it comes to, because I come from a place where, you leave all that stuff off and you only talk about the normal stuff, the top 10 things that everybody else is talking about in the country. Put your own spin on it. You're like, and we go back to it. But I guess because I feel like we're in a time where there's a lot of tension, a lot of anxiety.
Sure.
I'm caught up in it. And so I have to share these moments. Like I said, I don't want to spend every single day here or every single moment, because I know that it's just a drag. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel compelled to that, especially when it's like, actually, I take it back. Most days I do get you. Every day this happens to some degree. I do push it aside. I do get over it most days to be able to push through and execute the basic functions of a civilized human being. But then there are those days, man, where I, like yesterday and then today, was even worse. That I'm spiraling.
Well, let's talk about some other stuff. So I had a really great meeting yesterday with a large local charity, Boys and Girls Club.
All right.
And last year they have this one really big event. It's called their steak dinner, and it happens at the.
Do they need any tomato steaks?
So all the steaks are provided by Outback, and I think they're all either filet mignon or like their good Outback special or whatever. But basically, it's their big event of the year, and it's a fantastic. They raise a ton of money for the Boys and Girls Club, and if you don't know about the Boys and Girls Club, it's a fantastic organization. And this is the Boys and Girls Club of Tampa Bay, and they've got 19 locations, and they have a brand new one that's opening. That's the Jeff and Penny Vinnick location. And I believe that's August 21st, I want to say, that they're going to open that as a grand opening. And we talked about some really cool ideas that involve you potentially walking through the new location and giving us a tour, giving the world a tour. And,
I'd love to.
Using some of the technology you have with the cell phones, and perhaps even doing a walking interview with Jeff and Penny about, why they donated the millions of dollars they did on this club, which is state of the art.
I'd love to.
I mean, from what I understand, they spent $150,000 just on the internet connection in this club.
Jeez.
Yeah, just like on the technology, the network, and all of that. So, I mean, this is all really big stuff, man.
That's exciting, and I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All right. I'm just in a moment,
and we
and I don't know why.
Talents. We need your talents.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm not giving up. But I also, in those moments, I do feel compelled for whatever reason, because I know there were fixes for yesterday and today, and the first fix would have been to call Pat Largo, or Corey Dillon, or Brett Wilkins, and go, hey man, you want to come do the show with me? Because then we just keep the conversation going, and if I have to, I get a little something off my chest, we move on to something else. The second way to handle it was not to come in at all, because I was just in such a bad place. I haven't taken a day off in forever, and just go, listen, I just need a couple of days. But that's not, I also don't feel like that's an option for me right now. So I go, you know what? Just go in there and wallow in it, and then I'll throw it up to a higher power. Like there's a reason, there's a reason for this, and you don't understand it right now, but just go out there and do it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what we're doing here.
Okay.
So one of the things that when I was talking to the Boys and Girls Club, one of the things that they really understood is the value of what's happening up here. They, just like many other organizations, are struggling to create content. The process is, when you talk about, in the DATS guy, my friend Tony Polero at DATS actually said this best. He said, I come in, I've got some new dessert or something, and what happens is I'll pay a videographer to come in. They'll take, we have to schedule everybody to come in. They come in, they shoot for 2 hours, so they're occupying space that I can't use for tables, whatever. Then they shoot all this footage. They have to download it all. 2 weeks later, I get a fresh, I get a first draft. Then I send revisions. Maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, I get a video that's 60 seconds and costs me like $1,000 to make.
At least, yeah.
Make, right? And he's like, man, what you guys are doing is so cool. And the Boys and Girls Club figured that out, and I said, hey, what do you think about, the Wake.Show being broadcast from the Boys and Girls Club studio? And she's like, man, that's incredible, because you've got organizations like GTE is a huge sponsor of theirs, and you've got organizations like them who are struggling. I mean, they've probably got 2 people in their social media department trying to figure out what they're going to post today, and they desperately want to connect with the community. And they can do that through very, very well-known nonprofits and charities like the Boys and Girls Club. And imagine all the good we can do by helping be a conduit and glue that all together.
I love that. I love that. And, that goes back to keeping your mind busy, too. Like if you're doing stuff for other people, like if today I had to go to the Boys and Girls Club and broadcast from there to make sure that their message got out, yes. I guarantee I wouldn't be feeling half the anxiety, half whatever's inside of me that I can't say it's a guarantee because it's not that controllable, but if there are those things, you can get through those moments a lot easier. So then I'm focused on making sure your message is getting out there, and I'm connecting the Boys and Girls Club, It'll wash back over once it's done, once I go home. But that's what wine is for, right? Sharon says, I have anxiety. Sometimes it's worse than other times, but I try to do something to take my mind off of it. Steve her husband, does not have it, and his response is when I tell him I have anxiety is, I wonder why, which is the same response I get from my wife, because they don't get this. So they're going, why? They're looking for a cause and effect. And my response is, who knows? Because I can never feel perfect. So sometimes I go for a walk, sometimes I swim, sometimes I just do something like listen to you, or just to get my mind off of it. Helping others is good, but not always feasible right at that moment. Yeah, Fish, you had fun this weekend, no panic attacks, but you were busy and your mind was not on anxiety. That is true.
In the book. Busy is one of your worry.
Yeah, you're right.
Stay busy.
You're right. Do you have any logs? Oh, I see you got somebody to mow the lawn around here. I can't take care of that task. Maybe there's some edging we could do. All right. Well, thank you very much. I do feel better right now. I do feel better now than I did at the beginning of the show, than I did this morning, than I did yesterday. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. And I do have a couple of things that I brought up just in case I didn't have to get into a mood.
There was a big news event that happened yesterday.
Well, there's a few. Well, if are you talking about the Trump one? Are you talking about the Supreme Court?
Like the one, yeah, all of us.
That's a huge, yeah. So we've got a new Supreme Court justice.
Nominee, yeah.
Now he's got to go through the process there, so we'll see what happens. My thoughts on that, this is what I said yesterday on the show too, is people are, I'd be really shocked. I'd be very surprised if they're going to revisit Roe v. Wade. All right. And for those of you that think it's going to go one way or the other, I'd be really surprised. So settle down, and we'll move on from that. But a couple of other big things. First, all 12 kids and that coach are out of the cave in Thailand. They got them out today. They extracted the last of them today. They had a very narrow window. It was so cool, too, watching the, I think it was Thai Navy SEAL. I don't know who it was that was talking, but they were speaking in Thai and translated. He was saying they got a 3-day window of no rain. And he basically said that is so uncommon, so rare for this time. I can't even pray for another day of rain because I know 3 days without rain is a blessing that you just don't see. So I can't even pray for another day without rain. It's such a miracle. But we have a very limited time before it starts back up again, and they were able to get everybody out of there. So that's a huge story. That was not easy, a huge dramatic story that was not easy. One death, however, that Navy SEAL last week who was trying to run supplies back and forth ended up losing his life. But great news. The good news is all the boys and the coach were rescued. That is right. Amazing. And did you see, Sharon, how the coach was the weakest out of all of them? Because he gave all his rations to the kids, and he was somebody who was orphaned as a child. So in his head, he's going, "Well, I'm not going to let these kids. I'm not. This is my place. This is my time. I'll check out, but I'm going to make sure every single one of these boys gets out of here." But all the boys and that guy got out of there, so that was really cool. And then some interesting news this afternoon, or some fun news, will be the unveiling coming up in about an hour and a half, I believe. The unveiling, if they haven't done it already, I think it's 2:00. The new stadium in Ybor. You know what I'm talking about? For the Tampa Bay Rays. The Rays to unveil their new Ybor City ballpark design plans today, and I want to at 2 p.m. So about an hour and a half. So that'll be something to look forward to later. Hey, can we talk about the Steve Weintraub thing, Facebook thing?
Sure, why not?
All right. Speaking of which,
how about
he's gonna be on the show on Thursday.
Yep. I guess you scheduled that.
Yes.
Okay, great.
Let me see if he messaged me back. All right. So Steve Steve and Julie Weintraub. You see him on TV all the time. Golden Diamond Source.
Very active members of our community.
Yep.
Big giving. Family.
Yep. So anyway, we're gonna have him on because they are trying to donate. They're trying to donate a statue for the pier, right? Is he trying to give it to him, or
no? I mean, I think it's going to cost a couple $1 million. But they were the ones who procured it, who found it. I think he was just being really proactive. I mean, I would love to hear the whole story from Steve.
Yeah,
I think he felt like this would be an amazing thing that would represent St. Pete. Years ago, whenever he found this thing and brought it to America, and I think it's cost a couple $1 million to get it moved and properly.
He said so he'll be on the show 11:45 on Thursday to talk more about that.
If we want to, I can read his post. We could bring it up.
I could pull it up too. Let me just show you guys what I'm talking about. So anyway, this has to do with the pier, not with the Rays, but as they build the new pier there, I guess there's some monument that people are bidding on that goes right in front. This is going to be the in the entrance, and so he has something that he wants it to be, and I'll show you the comparison here. So is it on his?
Yeah, it's on his. I'll see if I can. We'll just go back in our message history. It's one of the last things I sent you.
Hold, please.
Do do do.
do 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 do.
Yeah, make the internet machine work.
Oh, so that is happening. The Rays are moving.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't think so. I think this is all part of the deal. It's easy. It's easy to unveil the plans. You haven't built the stadium yet. It's cheaper. So they may unveil plans that never actually happen. So I think this is just the process. So
let's see here.
Some of the last stuff I sent you.
Yeah, Brett, that Buddhist or the coach that we were talking about was a trained Buddhist. So that was another thing. Those kids that were stuck in the cave for 12 days. They were stuck there with a Buddhist monk who had them all breathing and meditating the whole time. And that's one of the things that they credit for those kids to be able to keep their minds together and make it through this.
All right, I found it. Did you find it?
All right.
It was you and McCarty were copied on it. I'll send it.
Okay.
Try to send it to you again if you can't find it.
Is it before all those photos McCarty sent?
It was before.
A couple days ago. All right. It was right before those, right?
Yes, right before.
Here it is. Got it.
Got it. Okay, cool.
All right, so let's show you what we're talking about here, and this is in St. Pete. Whoops. How about I do this? So this is coming from Steve Weintraub's Facebook. So please take a look at these two works of art. One is 24... Well, I guess this is important details. All right, one is a 24-foot high, 8-ton bronze sculpture called Union of the World, which is the largest bronze mythological sculpture in the world, representing world peace as Hercules holds the pillars together instead of pushing them apart. So that is this sculpture right here, if you want to look at your screens now. That's that. It's Hercules holding the world together, or bringing the world together instead of pushing it apart. It was sculpted in Spain and shipped to the U.S. by world-renowned artist and sculptor Jens Siren. Julie Weintraub and myself spent thousands of our own money to have it brought here and now have it displayed in front of the Gold and Diamond Source where it is currently. Our idea is to have it displayed at the new St. Petersburg Pier as a symbol of peace and unity. We have contacted Mayor Rick Kreisman numerous times to please come out and at least consider this as the new pier centerpiece. The appointment made was canceled and replaced by a letter stating there was no funding, etc., etc. The price is so it is a $2 million expenditure.
Right.
The second photo, however, is $2.8 million. Okay, so what they want is 2.8. This is only $2 million.
No. So the second figure is, so they couldn't get the mayor to come out and look at it, officially look at it, to evaluate it, and said that they didn't have the funding. The $2 million.
Okay.
And so instead of the $2 million, apparently the sculpture that has been chosen or is being proposed, and I guess Steve will give us the information on what's actually going on, but is 2.8 million, and it's some kind. It looks like a
big sale. Yeah, I'll show it to you here in a second. So the second photo is what the mayor has decided would be best for our pier centerpiece at $2.8 million. There is no description, as I have no idea what it is or what it represents. Our mayor has not even taken the time to at least view Union of the World, saying he has no funding. Please, I'd like to know what everyone's thoughts are. Shouldn't we have some say in what our pier's centerpiece is? Who exactly decided on paying $2.8 million for this floating balloon? So this is it here. I'm going to click on it, see if we can get a better shot. Maybe not.
It's doing something, weird. I think because you're so zoomed in. Zoom out. There we go.
Let's see here. So now look at your screens. It is it is eye-catching.
Yeah, I mean, it probably moves in the wind and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not necessarily opposed to it, but let's hear his side of the story.
Yeah. I guess we don't know the story behind it or anything like that.
If St. Pete doesn't want that sculpture, I mean, Tarpon Springs might want it. I mean, Hercules is kind of a big deal to them.
That's right. Are you talking about this or the other one?
Right, exactly. Right. Yeah, the Union of the World might be a great centerpiece for Tarpon Springs.
I mean, I do like the the thought behind it. Mm-hmm. Union of the World.
If you've driven by there recently too, if you look at it in front of the jewelry store there, it's all cleaned up. Like it looks.
Looks new.
It doesn't look like that. No, it looks new in front of the jewelry store.
So I don't know if it looks bronze again.
Recent picture. Yeah, it looks bronze again instead of the.
Okay. All right, so we'll have Steve in on Thursday to talk a little bit about that.
And he'll be coming in virtually from Colorado.
Colorado, yep. Yeah, so I'll make sure that he runs through some of the dispensaries for me while he's up there. Grab something on his way back. Sharon says he was a great guy. At first, I wanted to blame him, but he did. He gave them all the food. I am sad the Rays are leaving St. Pete, but they must be almost be a side conversation talking about the ownership.
Okay.
Hopefully they don't use the same contractors and Vikes use for the U.S. Bank Stadium. That thing is a huge mistake. Okay, they're all back on the Rays thing. All right, well, we made it through. Cords, you didn't have to come up here. I really appreciate you that you did, but you didn't have to come up here and hold my hand. But thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, and same goes for you, Sharon and Brett and Sarah and Steve and everybody else watching today. So thank you so much for being a part of the Wake.Show today. And Chris will be flying back tomorrow and then back on the show on Thursday. I don't know if we're going to try to Skype him in tomorrow or not. We will figure that out as we go. Have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.